and welcome to a Pod of Tea podcast, your go-to place for teas and chats. I'm your host, Emma, and I am joined today by a new guest, a very special guest, one Mike Tharme. Hello, Mike.
Hello.
Hello to you. Have I said your last name correctly?
You did indeed, yes. I've had many names, Tharme, The Arm, and I think someone pronounced it as Ganesh at one point. Like, there's a T and it starts with a G. Okay, whatever.
Yeah,
Tharme is correct.
Casual Ganesh in there. Why not? As my current last name, I've only had for a few years. But my old last name, Minahan, that used to get some really interesting pronunciations. And like when you apply for a card or something, and what people would write, I think I had Mini Man once. That caused. That was some fun. Thank you for coming on my podcast. So, Mike, could you let us know a little bit about what you do? Because it's very interesting.
Well, interesting to some, boring to others, I suppose. I am currently a master's degree student at the University of Central Lancashire, and I'm studying stop motion animation. So my whole degree is wrapped around a particular animator that some of you may have heard of called Ray Harryhausen, and he was an animator between the 1940s right up to the 1980s, and he made about 16 feature films. You may have seen some of them: Jason and the Argonauts, Clash of the Titans, Sinbad, Eye of the Tiger, Valley of Gwangi. There's loads that I could reel off, but unfortunately we just don't have the time to go through all of them.
See how long the teapot lasts.
If it's anything to go with my mug, it's probably a while.
Oh, nice. Good. We're in for the long haul. Excellent. Oh no, Ray Harryhausen movies are great. Yeah, if you haven't seen them, I definitely recommend them as a Sunday movie. Like, get a cup of tea on the go and that kind of cozy Sunday feel that you want, where you want to watch something a little bit old school, something that you may have seen on television in the background one day, and then you'll be like, oh, it's that film, because it's surprising how many become quite iconic and that you notice in different places. Yeah. I mean, obviously Jack has introduced me to quite a bit of Ray Harryhausen, as you can imagine. But yeah, I remember Jason and the Argonauts very clearly, and that's an amazing movie.
You only have to say fighting skeletons and you're immediately taken to that moment where you've got Jason and his two other crew members fighting 7 stop motion skeletons on ancient Greek ruins. And it's the same with any of his films, really. Every film, even if it's only just like a segment of the film, has such a nostalgic anchor to any generational childhood. But it's also kind of like the kids of today will watch his films and be absolutely awe-stricken with them. So you can have like Teletubbies and what have you on the background, but you stick them in front of a saber-toothed tiger fighting a prehistoric troglodyte, and they're just as interested and glued to the TV as they are against Tubby Time sort of thing. So it's brilliant. Love it.
I completely agree. We had my nephews and niece round this weekend, and Jack took them off to look at the DVD collection and turned to the youngest Sebastian and said, pick what film you want. And he comes out with one of the most probably old school, no one's ever seen it Godzilla movie, like where he's in the suits, and the plot was like, we just fast forwarded to all the bits with Godzilla in for him, and he was enraptured. It doesn't matter that there wasn't any CGI. It was a man in a rubber suit falling over in what could only be described as a pond, but and it was amazing, and he loved it. That is the magic of special effects, I guess, like old school special effects. They still work. I realise we haven't mentioned tea yet, Mike. My goodness.
I know.
Terrible behaviour. So what tea are you drinking today?
I am drinking, I think it's pronounced Diplomat, refreshing berry tea.
Oh, very nice. Oh, an Aldi special. Hello. Yes. I am all about an Aldi special. In fact, actually, so you said you're drinking a berry tea. I'm drinking an Aldi berry tea as well, but the specially selected version, because
special
extra.
Selected.
I think this might have been a Christmas present. I went through my cupboard to try and find a berry tea so I could match you. And this was right at the back, so I haven't had it for a while, so I'm quite excited.
Now, question is it in date if it's been at the back?
Oh, my gosh. I was talking about, there is a date.
Yeah.
October 2019. We're in.
You're lucky.
In date. So this answers another question that I had on a podcast episode a while ago, which is, does tea ever go out of date? Because we have got some licorice China black tea in there that has probably stuck itself to the cupboard by now. So I might throw it away.
I've made that mistake before now of just assuming tea has an infinitive shelf life. It'll be here millions of years into the future, way after we've been and gone, and ended up being quite ill after drinking it, thinking, what could be so wrong with me? I've not eaten or drunk anything different. Check the bottom of the packet.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was about 6 months out of date.
Oh my gosh, let this be a warning to one and all.
Yes.
Check the dates of those teas.
You have very intimate relations with the toilet after that.
Oh, dear, no one wants that. If you've made yourself a cup of tea, that is the last thing that you're wanting or expecting. So I'm gonna pour mine now. So I've got mine brewing in my Wizard of Chelsea. Gosh, I love this teapot. It's so good, and it's got a little candle, so it's been sort of like brewing away there nicely. So let's have a pour. Got my very nice teacup for the occasion as well. So yeah, tell me about yours tea, Mike. Is it living up to the berry expectations?
Oh, it is. I absolutely love this tea. Normally my go-to tea is like PG Tips or
Yes.
What's the other one? Tetley. There we go.
Oh,
they've been a staple tea part of my life since probably when I was about 9 years old, I think. I think that's when I probably first started drinking tea.
when
and
you
that
first started, great.
Yeah. And that was only because, and this is going to be really, really sad, but I think Jack might sympathise with me a little bit. In the tea packets, they used to have the little gift card things that they used to give away in packets, like the animals and the wildlife, and they had the dinosaur versions in there. And I was adamant I was going to get them all. So regardless that my parents were like, no, we already drink Earl Grey, we're not getting another type of tea. It's like, no, I am getting this tea. I'm drinking this tea. I'm getting the dinosaur card on the inside of it. So, yeah, since about 9 years old, I've been drinking tea of all types, really. But I've found that in recent years, I actually prefer the flavour of berry teas over other types of teas. And I think so anything that's got like a mixed berry or just a high flavour to it, I tend to gravitate towards those, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping it's not, the sound cut out ever so slightly then. So I'm hoping it's not on the podcast recording. It might be just through my headphones. And if so, there might be some funky editing that you guys have been listening to up to now. And it's going to be a jazzy, maybe it's a jazzy podcast, or maybe you've drunk some out-of-date tea and you're not quite saying that's the thing. Who knows? But yes, no, the berry teas. I've always found with berry tea that sometimes it smelled a lot better than it tasted. Because it's very fragrant, but then I've realised that's actually just part of the experience, is like the smelling and then drinking. I mean, this one smells lovely. Forest fruit infusions. I'm not quite sure what classifies something as a forest fruit.
I'm not sure either, actually. I'm just checking mine because it's got strawberries and raspberries on the front, but I don't actually know if it's got like an ingredient. Oh no, it has got ingredients. Here we go. So what have we got? Hibiscus, apple promise. Rose nip, flavouring elderberry, raspberry and strawberry.
Oh, that sounds lovely. Now, it has been known for me to say that I am a very big fan of hibiscus. So that's sounding really good. This one also actually isn't too dissimilar. This is like 45% apple, and then it's got hibiscus, rose hip, and then flavouring. Just flavouring. Who knows what the flavouring is?
Something to do with that special.
That for it the infusion is coming from flavouring. It's nice, and it is the hibiscus style of things. I'm getting quite intrigued at the moment with a lot of iced teas. There seem to be a lot of people selling loose leaf teas that you can then have as an iced tea. It's summer, so
might as well. Although I did hear somebody say once, and I'm talking like years ago when I was working in retail, they said that if you drink tea on a hot day, it raises your body temperature, so it actually feels like you're cooler than what it actually is. I never understood the science in that. I kind of get the idea of it, but imagining just to get hotter to match the level of the atmosphere heat.
Yeah,
it's like you're effectively cooking yourself alive.
I don't understand that at all. But I've heard the same thing. It seems mad. It's like, oh, it's cold out. Time to get the swimwear on. Off we go. Like it just doesn't really make sense. But Yes. No, the struggle is real at the moment. There are a few moments where I'm like, I really want a tea, but also like I'm melting. Yeah. So what does one do? So iced tea clearly might be the answer. So Mike, I know you, oh, sorry, yeah.
I was going to say I have to get hold of some iced tea at some point. It's always been one of the things that I wanted to try, but then it puts me off. It's like I've associated tea as a hot thing. So then to go from hot to suddenly cold, it just feels weird, but I do want to try it at some point.
I think maybe pick one that has a lot of sugar in, and then you're gonna. Do you have sugar in your tea? If you have
builder's tea, I do, but I have a method behind it. The smaller the cup, the less sugar I have. So normally, the standard size cups that I tend to use have about maybe 1.5, 2 teaspoons worth of sugar. But when it comes to something like this, I have to have 6 teaspoons of sugar just to get that sugar level up.
That is, you guys can't see the mug, but that is a mighty mug. That is I
can fit my fist in it.
Excellent. Yes. I love those mugs. It's great. It's saying I'm sitting down and I'm not getting up for a long time. That's what those mugs are for. I like your sugar ratio. My elder sister, every time I make her a tea, she goes, I would like 1.5 sugars. And what she means is, no matter how much sugar you put in that mug, I'm going to say that I need a bit more. So I've done 1.5. I've done 1.5 heaped. I've done 2. And she's always like, not quite a half, is it, Emma? Oh, put some more in. Oh, quite funny.
It's worse for me with the sugar sachets that you get in restaurants, because to me, they say that's what the equivalent of a teaspoon. It's like, it's not. It's a fraction. I have to get about 6 of those just to get the equivalent of my 2 teaspoons in one shot. I was like, I don't care.
Trying to shortchange here. We will not stand for it. Amazing. So what I was going to ask is, could you explain, because you've got a really cool project on at the go, the wildlife on Mars, and I thought maybe you could give a little overview, because I think that's going to be an excellent watch to have on a Sunday with a cup of tea. By the looks of things.
So basically, way back in 2005, when I was doing my BA level of the animation course at the same university, I devised for my third year film that I wanted to do a stop motion creature feature, but I didn't want to do something with people because that sort of thing had been done so many times, and I wasn't feel confident that I could find any kind of acting student in the university that would quite understand, now I want you to stand there and scream like you've got a giant gorilla in front of you and just be confused by the whole ordeal. So anyway, I was trying to think of, so what do I want to do that's something stop motion but different? And at the time I was thinking, dinosaurs are quite popular, because this was around about 2005. So we'd just got the Peter Jackson King Kong. We'd also, in recent years, got Jurassic Park 3. So dinosaurs were still very much in kind of like the public eye at that point. But I didn't want to do just another dinosaur pic, because hundreds of people do that. And 9 times out of 10, you type in stop motion dinosaur on YouTube and it's all Lego and really crude puppets or all the retro stuff from back in the day, which is fine, but it kind of drowns out any uniqueness about it. So I started to think, how can I put a different spin on this? What can I do? And I remembered that one of Ray's previous projects that he never got off the ground was Sinbad Goes to Mars. And as a crazy of an idea that is, it's kind of based on the John Carter sort of idea.
Yes.
So whereas it's rather than a cowboy that gets sent up to Mars, it would have been an Arabian sailor and his crew that gets sent up to Mars. And the idea was that on Mars, you would have these prehistoric dinosaurs in parts of the Martian landscape. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if I could do alien dinosaurs? And I started coming up with all these different combinations of so I've got this T-Rex. Now, how can I make it something identifiable to kids? In Martian literature, say from John Carter, all the creatures have 4 arms. So what if this T-Rex had 2 tiny little arms that kids could identify as being a dinosaur, but then it had all these larger arms that would automatically be an adult thing? It looks like a dinosaur, but it's not. So there's that different level play going on. And then it was thinking about, so T-Rex bite force, what can that do? I won't do it like traditional jaws. I'll do it like pincer teeth. So it has the same idea, but it's a different evolutionary trait. And the whole project just kind of blew into this massive, BBC One wildlife documentary idea. And I just suddenly realised how big this project was becoming with all these different creatures. And I had to select 4 of them, animate the damn thing, get all the sets built, and it was brilliant to look at. But then afterwards, when I watched it over my degree show, I realised that 10 minutes of watching herbivore eat plants and then get eaten by carnivore, rinse and repeat for the second scene, and then the two carnivores from each previous scene clash and get eaten was really dull and boring.
Oh, no.
It's like the idea was there, but it just wasn't executed very well. So after that, I kind of kept playing around with the idea and trying to figure out what I could do with it. And eventually I was going to come back to it at one point. And then in 2011, I was volunteered at the Bradford Animation Festival, and a friend of mine who is now the director of the Manchester Animation Festival, try and get up if you want to see something really, really cool at some point. There's really good stuff there. He suggested to me that there was a competition that had just been released on a website, and the contest was to devise a storyboard for the Ray Harryhausen Foundation.
Oh, perfect.
That they would turn into a short film. So I thought, I wonder if there's something that could be done for Wildlife on Mars. So looked at the guidelines for the storyboard contest, and it was like you had to use 9 frames from the storyboard, and it had to be roughly about 1 to 3 minutes long. And I thought, easy, I could easily do this. So I took a score from, which one was it now? I think it was Peter Jackson's King Kong.
Yeah.
So it was the what was it now? The Brontosaurus chase sequence. That score was the thing that kind of inspired what I was doing for this. Mm-hmm. So I did everything together, put it online, saw everyone else's entries coming in, and I thought, I'm not going to stand a chance. Everyone else had some really bizarre, really good concepts, and I was one of the first ones in. And I thought, I'm just going to get buried underneath everyone. And I think the following, was it month? Yeah, so it would have been January, February time. Got an email from the website saying, congratulations, you have won the contest.
Yay!
And I was so over the moon. I was like, yes, I'm going to get to make my film, and I'm going to do all those. I'm part of the reward of this competition. You're going to go to London and meet Ray Harryhausen at his house, which I will get onto in a minute because that was an amazing story.
Oh my gosh! You met him?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it would have been my 5th time actually meeting him. 4 times I've met him at conventions, but this would have been the first and only time that I would have actually seen him at his house, which is a sad story in itself, but I'll get to that later. So they told me about I won the contest, and it was like, right, brilliant, Wildlife on Mars is gonna happen. What do I need to do? Where am I getting my funding from? I spoke to the guys down on the website, and they said, right, you have a month to make it, and you have to fund it yourself.
Ouch.
Yes. It's kind of a bit of a slap in the face. And knowing that at the time that I was unemployed, so I was on job seekers benefits, which didn't help. And this is, for them to say you have to make this in a month is clearly that these people knew nothing about stop motion, because what I had designed is like, 6 months just to make everything, let alone animate it as well. So it's like, okay, that's my year schedule out of the window. I'll just have to do what I can. So I built a prototype wire puppet of the Rex character that I'd done from the first film, and took that down to London. And his house was amazing. It was like an Aladdin's cave of treasures. You walked in the doorway, and on the stairs that was just outside of view of the corridor was the Cyclops from the 7th Voyage of Sinbad. And when I went into his TV room, he had a bronze sculpture of his interpretation of Kong fighting the T-Rex from King Kong, but it was in the shape of Wanji. He had his original Allosaurus puppet from 1 million years BC right next to it. And there was a part of me that was so relieved that my puppet was more or less the same scale as that Allosaurus.
That's
it was just
cool.
like, it was so nice. It was brilliant. I know people are thinking, he sounds very excited. Just see my hands waving around on the video feed. It's just ridiculous.
That's passion, though. That's, I think that's wonderful. I think some of my, the best qualities in people is when they're passionate about something. It's when everyone comes alive. It's lovely. Yeah. That's amazing. So you met him. Did you have a cup of tea with Ray Harryhausen?
Yes. I was there with him for about 3 hours. And the first hour that I was there, I remember him saying like, "Oh, sorry, I forgot to offer. Would you like a cup of tea?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure." And I said, "Oh, I also have cookies as well." And I was like, "Oh, he means biscuits."
Yeah.
He's lived in the UK since the what would it be now? 1960s, I think,
And
or
he
maybe
still
the late
said
50s,
cookies.
and he still said cookies. And it's like, after all that time, you'd think he would learn to say
Oh
biscuits.
no, I thought you meant actual cookies. I was like, wow, he got
No,
cookies for the occasion.
they were rich tea biscuits, digestives, and hobnobs, if I remember rightly. So it was all the classics.
Hobnob, the ultimate tea dunking biscuit, the hobnob.
Oh,
amazing.
Yeah. The Navy SEAL of biscuits.
Yes, it really is. That's incredible. I had no idea that you had a cup of tea with Ray Harryhausen. I mean, what a claim! What a claim to fame. I mean, do you ever sit there sometimes and think, oh, if only I could have had a cup of tea with that person? Like, there's a couple of people who've done things. Terry Pratchett's my big one. I'm just like, oh, that would have been. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to say anything. It would have been very boring on Terry's half. I've just been like, oh yeah, like tea shaking and spilling all over the place. But yeah, that would have been. So you managed to have a tea with your hero. What a joy. That's great.
I know people say as well, never meet your heroes because your image is just trashed by them. But for Ray, that was the one exception that I can actually say, that sitting down and having tea with him was the equivalent of sitting down with my late grandfather and just talking about movies all day long. It was just such a magical and memorable experience. And I honestly wish that, although I spoke to him over the phone a couple times after that point, because when I met him, it was in 2012 and he passed away in May 2013, the following year. Goodness. So I was hoping that, because when I took the puppet down to show him, he said, oh, can I have a look? So I gave it over to him. And his eyes just lit up. Like, he was just like a kid in a candy shop, and he was just playing with the puppet. He was moving it around, opening the jaw, asking questions about it, telling me what he didn't like about the puppet. And it was all like such a wash of emotions coming over. And I remember when I was getting ready to leave, he turned around and said to me, when you finish the film, make sure you give me a call and come back. I would like to see it with you. So he offered me an additional invitation to come back with the finished film, and it wasn't until I got back from London, because again, as I said before, I was on job seekers at the time. So I explained to the job centre girls behind the desk that this amazing opportunities come about. I'll keep doing job searches. I'll still keep doing so, but I need to focus on this because this is a massive career-changing opportunity for me, especially with something big as this. And their response was, well, animation isn't a career, it's a hobby. You need to get a proper job and stop living in the clouds. And that was probably one of the most, what's the word I'm looking for here? Soul-destroying moment of my life. So I got a job, tried to save up to try and make this film. And on my way home from Poundland, of all places where I ended up working in the end, I then had a 2-hour bus drive to get from Chorley all the way to Lytham St Anne's, because I just moved in with my now fiance.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I got a phone call from the very same lad who told me about the contest in the first place. And he said, are you sitting down, Mike? And I said, yes, I'm on my way home. Why? What's to do? Thinking it was going to be something relevant for the animation festival. And he said, I'm really sorry to tell you this. I've just heard that Ray has passed away. And I had to hold back the tears all the way to St Anne's, 2 hours on a bus, just thinking of all the opportunities that I missed because of one stupid comment at the job centre.
Yeah.
And then when I got home, I just broke down into tears, and I must have cried myself to sleep that night. I've never felt so emotional about. I mean, I've felt emotional about people passing away before, especially family. But for Ray, it was like this kindred spirit, this spark connection about it, and it just slipped through my fingers. And basically, coming to a very long story short, sorry about this, everybody.
No, it's fine.
So in 2016, I decided what I was going to do was do this master's degree, and this is what the short film is for, because next year in 2020 is Ray's 100th birthday, and the foundation are doing a massive celebration. They have a massive exhibit open in Scotland where they have all of his original puppets on display, all his original artwork. They're probably going to be screening a couple of his films down there. And they've been in touch with me for quite a few years, and they've often referred to me sometimes on the sly as kind of like the friend of the foundation because of all the connections that I've had with Ray. And they want me to finish this film so that they can showcase it at the celebrations next year.
That's brilliant.
tooth and nail at this university to get this short film made, because
Yes.
they are digging their heels in about what I should be doing on my course. It's like, nope,
okay.
I don't care about your degree. I care about my
I'm here to make a movie.
Yes.
Amazing. That's great. So I know there was an opportunity missed before, but there's this new opportunity now, and that, you know, it's kind of an homage, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
That's incredible.
And there's a lot of Ray that's going to be in this project as well. I've been studying not just kind of like the early stuff that he did, because that's primarily what my thesis is on in the first place, but also in understanding how he made his armatures, because he learned from Willis O'Brien, who worked on King Kong, and he also worked with I forget the name of the armatures. I think it was like a Spanish name, Marcel something or other. Anyway, people will look it up. So he learned a lot of the skills from them, which he and his father then built at the original armatures for all of his previous works, up until about, I think it was The First Men in the Moon was the last film that his father worked on. So anything after that point, either Ray had learned to machine the parts himself, or he cannibalized it from existing puppets just to save down on costs, which is probably one of the main reasons why from his earlier work you'll never see any puppets apart from recreations or sculpts that he's made since the ones that he's lost. But then you'll get maybe half a Cyclops leg, or you'll get something else, and it's all been put into a different puppet altogether. But yeah, it's going to be quite an emotional project, this one, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, I can get it filmed, because the amount of setbacks that I've had this year, again, all because of the wonderful University of Central Lancashire, just putting in block after block after block, and it's slowed me down to the point where technically now I've got until 4th of October to hand this film in, and I've just about started finishing up on the set. So I've got a lot of work to do between now and... Yeah.
Crunch time. But worth it. And it will be that thing where you'll get to the other side of it and look at it and go, yeah, I did
exactly.
that. And you can be fueled by tea as you go.
Coffee,
maybe with a cheeky extra sugar in there. You know, treat yourself, Mike.
Extra sugar, half a bag.
Half a bag, yeah. Let the spoon stand up, and then you know you've got enough. Wow, you're gonna be tired, but.
I'm very, very tired.
You know, it sounds like a bit of a life project, this one. So
this has been my white whale project since 2012, effectively. So it'd be nice to actually get the project finished and just focus on other things, because I've got so many ideas rattling around in my head, all short films, but all to do with stop motion, whether it's teaching it or educating people about it, or even just to talk to people about Harryhausen and you know how much of an impact he left on the industry. Because I don't think people quite realise that throughout the 40s and to the 80s, he inspired people like Steven Spielberg, Peter Jackson, George Lucas, Del Toro, you know, and that's just the heavy hitters. It's the smaller artists after that. Most of the crew on Jurassic Park are mostly influenced by Ray Harryhausen. So you could almost argue that Jurassic Park in itself is almost like a subconscious love letter to everything that Ray Harryhausen was. And
it's incredible the reach people have. And that, you know, there'll be in ways that he won't really, like my nephew watching movies, and no, that was Godzilla. But I'm sure he'd enjoy Ray Harryhausen, but like young children like that watching these films, that'll carry on through and affect, you know, their creativity and stuff in the future. And you have no idea what the snowball effects are with these things.
Exactly.
And your film, they'll see and go, there's going to be one child, you know, who goes around going, dinosaurs have 4 arms, actually, to their friends. You are going to spark a few arguments in the playground, I fear.
You never know. I mean, I'm hoping that I might at least interest people to at least take up like the biology of Mars in itself, because although my premise is a completely fantasy based idea, it's almost like, you know, if Mars had actually evolved into something, what would it be like? So it's like parallel universe, you know, fantasy idea. But because it comes that my film will be released the same year as Ray's centenary, and also the Mars 2020 project, I'm hoping that people that see this might get into then astrobiology and look into the life that was actually on Mars. You know, I know we've got fossils of microbes that have been found up there, and we know there's evidence of water up there, and who knows what actually might be under the surface or even the glacial areas that are on Mars. So you never know. I mean, that's what I like about animation, is that it inspires people to go in so many different routes. That it's not just a linear thing from, oh, I liked watching this cartoon when I was a kid, therefore I'm going to do a cartoon. Because some of the people that were inspired by Ray, they went on to paleontology, they went on to filmmaking, they went on to art. I've seen people that have done musicians that have just gone to do Harryhausen stuff. That are, I think there's a band out there called Harryhausen's Perfect 6 Foot Woman or something like that.
Of which I shall be Spotifying.
Yeah,
shortly after speaking to you.
I remember finding it on YouTube, and it was the most random. I just typed in Harryhausen. It was one of the first things that came up. Was like, what an odd choice for a band, but such an awesome name.
That's amazing. Oh, I've got band name envy. Amazing. Yeah, no, you're totally right. The reach these things have. Because that's, half of creativity is just being inspired by something, isn't it? You go around, like, if I write a song, it'll be because I've, like, something will trigger it, won't it? And, like, all your ideas for animation, you'll see something or you'll hear something, and you'll be like, oh, and it happens. The little spark. It's the worst. When you sit there and you're like, I need to have an idea. Nothing will happen. Yeah. Nothing at all. It's happened so many times. I'm like, okay, sit down, do something. No, it can't come out of thin air. You've got to have that. You've got to have that starting point.
You really
How
do.
exciting, though.
Ah, thank you.
So, guys, if you're listening, please check out the Ray Harryhausen.
So the full foundation is the Ray and Diana Harryhausen Foundation. They're doing loads of posts on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. They have a podcast themselves as well, which is also by the same name. So you can go check them out and hear them talk about everything Harryhausen officials, stuff from interviews from the foundation trustees. And half of those are either really good friends of mine or the people that I would love to meet, especially, what was the name of the director now? Steve Johnson. He directed what was it called? Sherlock Gnomes. There you go. Try to think for a second.
Of all the things you could have said then, Sherlock Gnomes was not top of the list of things I would say.
It was a very obscure reference put in there. It was like, I need to meet this man. He's amazing.
Oh, wow. Yes, Sherlock Gnomes. That's great. I really look forward to seeing your finished animation.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm hoping there's going to be a lot of people that are going to look forward to seeing it. It's a passion project for me, but I know that anything that's animation related to a lot of people, they either take it with a pinch of salt or they immediately turn a negative eye to it in that, oh, it's animation, it must be for kids, and they don't pay attention to it, which is a little bit sad sometimes, but I think it's just down to the way people
I think we might have on our hands a slight generation of adult children. I think me and Jack definitely fall into that category. Definitely. I spend a disproportionate amount of my time playing video games and watching cartoons. So I think it's people make jokes about all the grown-ups going to like Disneyland and stuff like that now and all together and things. And I think it's just the way of it. I think we all had we were very fortunate to have these very rich childhoods. Where we could watch, Saturday morning cartoons and do all these things. And then we're also very fortunate that we've grown up in a time where no one's really stopping us from doing that as adults.
Yes, that's very true.
And that we're allowed to have free time and buy a Nintendo Switch if we can and and look forward to the new Zelda game, which is going to be a joy. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll, when I release this podcast, which will be, I think I did one last weekend, so not next Sunday, Sunday after, or today, if you're listening to this, which would make more sense. I'll make sure that I post some links to Mike's stuff and you can have a look at check out his projects and what he's doing. But before I start to do any wrapping up here, I need to ask you a very important question, Mike. This is an argument that is going strong in the household here, and I feel it will rage for years to come. Would you ever put milk first before a tea bag in a cup of tea?
Oh, no. No. Has to be tea bag and sugar in first, hot water, then give it a stir for probably about maybe 20 to 30 seconds, and then put your milk in. Because I want to make sure all my sugar is dissolved, because I am so angry at people when they put the sugar and the tea bag in and then just immediately throw the milk and the hot water together. It's like, how is the sugar supposed to dissolve? Because then you get that slushy, lumpy mess at the bottom that just comes down like a treacle. No. It has to be sugar and water and then milk.
And then milk. Mike, you're a good man.
You're a wonderful host.
Thank you so much. And before we go, I wanted to do a quick plug to #TeaHour on Twitter. So I was on there for the first time yesterday, and it was great. So if you like tea and you're listening to this podcast and you're on Twitter, I would definitely recommend on a Tuesday at 7, I believe, clicking on that hashtag. People were just talking about all sorts of lovely things. There were cakes going around. There was different tea-based items. There was just some like general people who do kind of crafting and make things. There was someone who just like stuff out of wood. And I found a really great person on there called Kimberly, who has a tea blog. So definitely check that out. I'll put some links up to that soon as well. And inspired by our chat today, Mike, I invited her onto the podcast as well, because now I know I can do podcasts without someone being in the room with me, which is great. So I'll hopefully be having Kimberly on soon as well. But yeah, thanks, Mike, so much for chatting to me and having a cup of tea. Cheers, a virtual cheers to you.
Cheers.
Oh, there we go. So yeah, until next time, everyone. Thank you very much. Goodbye.